Ruslan.
To go back to your story, you get married, you're brought up in this purity culture, and did you save yourself for marriage, and then you found out your husband was like full on having sex with somebody else before you guys were married?
He was going on tour with bands while we were dating. So before we like moved in together and got married and everything, he was adding to his numbers. He'd already slept with people before me. And then it wasn't until we were married for 2.5 years that he ended up telling me that he was cheating on me while we were dating. So for me, that was a beautiful opportunity for a reckoning in myself. I consider that the beginning of my deconstruction, because on the pendulum, I was up here being perfect Christian girl. And I felt very betrayed by the whole narrative, because it was like, if you're perfect, if you're a good girl, your Prince Charming will come, right, the one that God has sent for you, and you'll live happily ever after. You'll have 1,000,000 orgasms. You'll ride off in the sunset together. And again, in my experience, that wasn't true. In Linda K. Klein's experience, you see it's not true for a lot of people. Not everyone is capable of making that switch to like, oh, now sex is good. Now I can have sex.
Yeah,
like,
no, you're right.
Sometimes physiologically your body refuses to do it.
Yeah.
So for my case, when I did that pendulum swing, I swung all the way to hookup culture, where I was like, baby out with the bathwater. I don't care. I'm not going to count. I'm not going to keep a tally of numbers. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, because I have to free myself from this. And I like to think and hope and pray that I can be a cautionary tale for anyone, because to your point of what you're saying about these studies and everything, I do believe there is divine wisdom in abstaining at the right times, at being really careful and thoughtful about your sexuality, about really, really understanding your worth, not I'm worthy because I'm a virgin.
Yeah.
Because mind you, Mike Todd and all these other people never mention sexual assault, never mention that sometimes, quote, losing your virginity isn't a choice. So you have survivors in these crimes likely that are being told, this gift, Jen Johnson, your gift.
Yeah.
Don't have it anymore.
Yep.
And that is the BS that I push up against. But that is not to say that I think there is not wisdom in the beauty of reconciling your spirit, your spirituality and your sexuality, making yourself whole, and really walking in that wholeness and that true sense of self-worth.
Yeah, that's good. And gosh, thank you for sharing that. And that I appreciate you being vulnerable. Cliff Note version. Me and my wife, she was 17, I was 19 when we started dating, openly rejected, kissed dating goodbye. 4 years later, we got married on our dating anniversary. I was 23, she was 21. And we did not have intercourse, but we definitely crossed some boundaries. And then when we got married, it definitely required work to develop a healthy sex life. So I think you're right in that some of this stuff, I'm totally with you on language like your value, your worth, your gift. I just don't think it's helpful for women that maybe they weren't Christian, women that, to your point, got sexually assaulted. And that's where me and you, again, we would agree on that. And so long story short, we're going on 13 years of marriage. We waited 6 years to have, thank you. Yeah, it'll be 13 years in July. My wife is incrementally the main thing for a lot of our success, and why I am where I am. You know what I mean? It's really because of just like an amazing wife who wants to be a mom and help me with the business and do all these other things, right? It's super cool. And so marriage has been incredibly amazing to me. Yet I agree with you that this notion that if you just save yourself, you will go in and you will have this incredible sex life. It took us work. It took us a couple years, and it was work, and we had to be intentional, and we had to pray about it and seek counsel. And she, oh, by the way, she was a virgin. I had 3 sex partners before. She was a virgin. And it just,
classic.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I wasn't out here like what a, anyway, I was going to say something probably inappropriate, but I say all that to say it required work. There was time. It was hard. Those first couple years were hard. We were living with my mom, poor life decisions. Even though we did some things right, we made a lot of poor decisions. So I guess my question to you, is it possible that maybe in your discarding of parts of purity culture that were not good, right? You said you swung the pendulum the opposite extreme. Maybe in your discarding of fundamentalism, that you maybe also discarded some truthful things about the character of God, about the ways of God, the standards of God, right? To the point where, you know, I know you say you're body positive and, you know, pro masturbation. I don't know if you're pro pornography or not, but you know, you're cool with people living together before being married, sleeping together before being married. Is it possible that you maybe threw a little too much of that baby with the bathwater out, you know, and maybe the pendulum could swing back into what maybe people would say is a more orthodox view of the scriptures and sexuality? Do you think that's a possibility?
So I think that the answer is essentially no.
Okay.
But also with the caveat of like, I don't know, and I'm in it for the growth, and I'm in life for the wisdom,
Yeah.
and I'm in my faith practice for the Holy Spirit and for that conviction. So I'm always open to my stance changing on things and evolving and growing. That said, I really do feel like we're remiss to not have someone standing in the space that I am, because whatever your personal morality or your belief on what the Bible means when we talk about sexual immorality, if you think that strictly means heterosexual only sex between a man and a wife, then that is your prerogative, that's your belief. I just don't believe that, because biblically marriage just isn't even what it was then now. So, and there's a lot of other reasons, but basically for me, again, I'm standing in this space of the gray. So we could say in an ideal world, before the fall of the world, before Adam and Eve, a man and a woman getting together, living happily ever after, like you and your dope wife and your amazing relationship, that is, yes, of course, that is ideal to me in so many ways, like in my personal stance. And at the same time, we are living here in this complicated mess. I am someone that got divorced, had a bunch of sex partners, really degraded. I don't want to say degraded because I don't necessarily believe that, but I definitely dishonored my body, did things that I regret, hurt other people in ways that I regret through that sexuality. And then I landed in this place where my moments of reckoning, of reconstructing and finding who I was in this new space of spirituality in my Christendom, was when I was about to have a casual sex experience. And I had just read Linda K. Klein's book, and she suggested that with the purity culture narrative, a lot of us become very compartmentalized. So if you are in church and you know you're watching porn, or you know you're masturbating and people are telling you you're not allowed to, or you know you're hooking up with your girlfriend, whatever, all these things, you're still going to walk into that space looking for truth and looking away to honor your faith practice and still be a whole person. And when I walked into my bedroom for the very first time in like 10 years, after this whole terrible journey, which is going to be in my book that's coming out called On Her Knees, it'll be out in April.
Congratulations on that, by the way. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. But it lays out all of this stuff about purity culture. And then this final moment, I was like, you know what, God, you get in here. Get in this room with me, be a part of this experience with me. Because I realized the purity culture narrative and the hookup culture narrative gave me this idea that I had to separate myself. I'm spiritual here, I'm with my church body here, I pray over here, and I have sex over there. And when they are separated, I believe that is where truly terrible things can happen, or even medium crappy things can happen.
Yeah.
For example, in one instance, when I was deep in my trampage, as I call it, I hooked up with this bartender in New York, and it got to a point where he was getting like violent with me.
Oh goodness.
And instead, and it was supposed to be in a sexy way. It wasn't like dark. It was supposed to be sexy, but not at all the way I would have felt comfortable having sex with someone that I didn't know. And my body and emotional, spiritual response to that was to have my first out-of-body experience. I floated above my body, and then the narrative I told myself was, well, this is what you deserve. You've been a bad girl. You're not honoring yourself. Like, you deserve what's coming to you. classic purity culture message of you're doing the wrong thing, therefore you deserve what's coming to you. And that really signified that separation of not honoring my body, not only because I was doing something that was, quote, wrong for me, but also because I didn't even know that I had worth or value anymore because of my sexuality, because of how I was behaving. So in that final moment where I said, God, get in this room, it was a really profound experience because I was still doing, quote, the wrong thing. But for the first time on this sexual journey, I could hear Holy Spirit's voice. I got that conviction and that ping. I knew this isn't going to yield good fruit. This isn't a good person. This isn't someone that I want to be hooking up with. I don't want to be here anymore. And I removed myself from the situation. And I have never had a situation like that again, even in my dating life. All of that said, God is gray to me signifies this area where you're not only welcome to ask questions, but you're also welcome to have a different experience that's not the ideal. You're going through a divorce and you're trying to figure out your sexuality. You're gay, trans, lesbian, whatever, and you're trying to figure out your sexuality. I am saying, and I believe that it's through spirit that I'm saying this, that you are welcome into my community. You're welcome into the fold of Christianity to figure that out. And I am never going to be, or I don't want to be prescriptive about what people should do. I always remind people the Holy Spirit has been given to you by Jesus. He left that messenger for us, and you will be able to intuit right from wrong. You can get into your own Bible and look into your theological beliefs. If you believe that you need to be abstinent until you get married, and that is of utmost importance and that's biblically sound, then you do that and you are welcome in my community. If you are on a journey with it and you're not sure where you stand, you're still here. Like too often in these cultures, we were told, or we were to believe that we weren't welcome if we were on a journey like this. So I know that's not like a direct answer, but at the same time, I didn't have a beautiful one-person experience like you did, but I still find my sexuality beautiful. I'm not married. I have a baby with someone and we live together, and I don't even know if or when I want to get married again. And at the same time, I just don't see how that doesn't make me, quote, not a Christian or not a good girl or not the right kind of person to be talking about theology, because it's just a part of who I am. And at the same time, I think there's so much wisdom in, like I said, sexual integrity. I've never once gone to an evangelical church and heard about enthusiastic consent. And that is one of the main things that's missing in the culture that we're purveying in like church. And I would love to stand in that space and say you can be sexual and spiritual and you're just welcome to be here.
It sounds like you did change your mind on hookup culture. And it sounds like you had this.
I'm never a fan of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always sucked.
Yeah. Well, but that's interesting when you think of how people speak, people who really immerse themselves. I think it was Wilt Chamberlain that said, I've slept with 1,000 women, but I rather sleep with one woman 1,000 times, right? When Chamberlain was a famous basketball player who had a lot of sexual partners. So again, in my consideration, I do think that is the standard, though I think if someone doesn't uphold that, I think there's grace for that, but I do think that is where we should aspire towards. If you watch this and this made you feel a way or threatened you, it shouldn't have. Brenda's presenting different ideas. If anything, conversations like this reaffirm my views. It gives me stuff to think about, gives me research to do. But I do not feel threatened having these conversations, and neither should you. Like, you really shouldn't. Send Brenda some love. Give her an encouraging comment on Instagram. Give this video a like, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. Peace. Joshua the King came down and bore it all. Yeah, conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate. On a first name basis with the worst pain facing.
moments in isolation. See, I was hoping I would do this to get more family time. A busy mind and worried heart is just